In 1996, during the blossoming season of spring, a determined 7-year-old girl named Jessica Dubroff had a big goal. She wanted to be the youngest person ever to fly across America by herself. She loved flying and was excited about her journey. But sadly, things went wrong because of some bad decisions and the weather. This led to a sad event that affected many people who followed her adventure. It also made authorities change some rules about flying to make it safer. This is the sad story of Jessica Dubroff. Jessica Whitney Dubroff was born on May 5, 1988, to parents Lloyd Dubroff and Lisa Blair Hathaway. Her parents were from Ukraine, but they mostly lived in Falmouth, Massachusetts. When Jessica turned 4, her family relocated to the San Francisco Bay Area, known for its vibrant culture and tourist attractions. Jessica's mom, Lisa Hathaway, was an important figure in her life. Lisa, who considered herself a healer, had unconventional beliefs. She didn't trust Western medicine, regular schools, children's books, or toys for Jessica. Because of her mother's beliefs, Jessica had an unconventional upbringing compared to other children. She didn't have toys, watch TV, or go to school like most kids did. Some people criticized her mother's choices, calling it bad parenting. Reports even suggested that Jessica's mother was living in a place without permission from the landlord or a legal agreement, relying on assistance from local food stores. It was evident that Jessica encountered challenges from the beginning. Jessica's parents separated shortly after they moved to California. Despite the divorce, Jessica's father, Lloyd Dubroff, remained nearby. Without toys or TV, Jessica found joy solely in riding horses and in her job delivering newspapers to homes in her neighborhood. Despite her hardships, Jessica used the money she earned from her job delivering newspapers to mail to children in South America several times a week, showcasing her kind-hearted nature even at the age of 7. Despite Jessica having less formal education, both her parents were overambitious and wanted her to set a world record by flying across the country. Surprisingly, it wasn't just Jessica's mother who was overambitious, but her father, Lloyd, as well. It was known that he had studied engineering at Florida State University, but he never graduated. He was a tall man, standing about 6'4", and he had a strong desire to become a pilot. However, his height posed a challenge, as he was deemed too tall to fly in the Air Force. Despite his aspirations, he had to abandon his dreams due to his height. Over the years, he found himself entangled in various legal matters, appearing in court as a defendant in cases involving taxes and automotive maintenance. Jessica's journey into flying at such a young age began when she celebrated her 6th birthday. While other parents were giving toys, arranging special celebrations, and spending quality time with their children, Jessica's birthday took a different turn. Her father, Lloyd, proposed the idea of taking flight lessons from a man named Joe Reed, who offered lessons at the Half Moon Bay Airport. Jessica became incredibly enthusiastic about flying and developed a keen interest in it. She willingly accepted to take flight lessons from Reed. Along the way, her father convinced her to attempt flying from coast to coast at a young age, which would make her the youngest pilot ever to achieve this feat. This idea further fueled Jessica's passion for flying because she was determined to break the record. In 1996, at the tender age of just 7 years old, Jessica's parents approached her with the idea of flying across the country and stopping to see her grandfather for her 8th birthday. Jessica readily agreed, and her father, Lloyd, along with the flight instructor Joe Reed, were to accompany her. The journey was named the Sea to Shining Sea Trip, and it would establish Jessica as the youngest pilot to cross the USA. Hats were created to commemorate the trip and were distributed to friends, who were excited but understandably very nervous for the family. The plan was for her to pilot a small airplane from Half Moon Bay to Massachusetts and back, which would make her the youngest pilot in the air, a record that has been excluded from the Guinness Records books since, as we'll discuss later. Many speculations were thrown around, but one that caught interest was from Lloyd's landlord, who had evicted him from his house earlier that year. He said, "I don't understand how he could come up with the money to pay for a flight like this," which could only mean one thing. Lloyd barely had enough to sustain himself, yet he went all in with his daughter, believing that breaking the record would surely bring fortune. On April 10, 1996, Jessica embarked on her journey across the coast, aiming to break the record. Because Jessica was so young, Reed had to accompany her, serving as the co-pilot. The plane was a 4-seat single-engine aircraft manufactured in 1975, equipped with dual flight controls like most aircraft. Jessica was instructed to sit in the front left seat, with Joe Reed sitting in the back alongside Lloyd. It was agreed that Reed would be compensated for his services at normal flight instruction rates, along with additional compensation for the layover time. It didn't take long for Jessica to become the talk of the town, and many people became interested in her adventure. While some opposed the idea, there wasn't much they could do to stop it. The journey was planned as a one-week circuit flight, and from the moment it was announced, Jessica garnered a lot of media attention. People came out to greet her at every stop along the way. She flew until the fourth night, concluding the first leg of her journey at Sky Harbor Airport in Wyoming. That evening, they stayed in Cheyenne and were welcomed to Wyoming's capital city by Mayor Leo Pando. They conducted some media interviews before getting a ride to their hotel. As they were traveling, they heard about some bad weather coming their way. Even though the weather was fine at the moment, it was starting to become threatening. The director suggested they stay in Cheyenne, but Lloyd wanted to leave because his daughter wanted to beat the storm, so they decided to take off despite the bad weather. In other words, they took off, disregarding the potential impact of the weather on them. Just before leaving, Jessica spoke to her mother on the phone. During the conversation, she was eager to get going, saying, "I've got to go, Mum. The rain is coming." While they were in the air, the rain intensified, and they struggled to navigate effectively in the heavy weather. The visibility at the airport dropped drastically, prompting Reed to depart the airport's control zone. It was around 8:24 a.m. when he took off, and turbulence was significant. Eyewitnesses reported that the plane lifted off, climbing slowly with its wings wobbling. After reaching a few feet in altitude, it began rolling down and crashed at an angle at Carnegie Court, narrowly missing a house where two women were inside. Later, these women expressed to the media their gratitude for being alive. Jessica, her father, and Joe Reed tragically lost their lives upon impact. Jessica's final words, captured by the flight tower, were a poignant inquiry. "Do you hear the rain?" Reed was ejected from the plane, still strapped in his seatbelt, while Lloyd was found lying on his side, his arms embracing Jessica. What could have been a historic and celebrated achievement instead became a somber memory, marked not by triumph, but by tragedy. The flight didn't achieve any records. Instead, it ended in the tragic loss of a 7-year-old child. The incident garnered widespread attention online, prompting the National Transportation Safety Board to launch an investigation. However, it wasn't until 11 months later that the final report was published, shedding light on the cause of the tragedy. The investigation concluded that the pilot in command at the time was Joe Reed, who took control of the plane when the rain started. This action was not uncommon, as during turbulence, it's advisable for those with more knowledge and experience to assume control. Many experienced pilots also voiced their opinions, attributing the incident to the drastic weather changes. The experienced pilots emphasized that the weather conditions would have been challenging to handle and would have had rapid effects on the plane. They stated unequivocally that they would not have taken off in those weather conditions. The safety board's conclusion underscored that the storm, high winds, and rain were the primary causes of the accident. The investigation also revealed that the plane was overweight. Ultimately, Joe Reed was identified as the probable cause for making the wrong decision regarding the weather conditions. While these conclusions cannot bring back those lost, they serve as a stark reminder that record attempts like this one should never be pursued, as they are both foolhardy and perilous. May they indeed rest in peace. It's a tragic reminder of the importance of prioritizing safety over records or achievements. The new legislation aims to prevent such tragedies in the future by imposing stricter regulations on who can operate aircraft in high-risk situations. Jessica's final resting place at Mount Hope Cemetery in California serves as a poignant reminder of her young life and the legacy left behind.